I was born in New York City. My mother was 19. She wasn't married, and really was unable to care for me. Tried until I was 9 months old, and then I was adopted by my maternal aunt and uncle in Chicago, and moved to Chicago, the south side of Chicago. I'll never again complain about a bad neighborhood. Moving from the Lower East Side of Manhattan to a still worse neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. So, after my ninth month, I kept my mouth shut about the neighborhood. I believed until I was 12 years old that I was not adopted. I had no idea that I was adopted within my own family. So again, I don't attribute very much of my life, my personality to my adoption. I do attribute it an awful lot to my relationship with my father, who was a Russian immigrant, came here, was very poor, dearly loved this country as only an immigrant can, loved our government as only an immigrant can. He was a pilot in World War II, bomber pilot. He he really had the philosophy, my country, right or wrong. He never questioned the government's policies, never questioned authority, and didn't really want me to question authority. I had some teachers when I was very young that I thought were telling me things that weren't true, and when I tried to ask questions, they basically wanted me to respond, basically parrot back what they said. They really weren't interested in a discourse with a child or a debate with a child. They said this was true, and you are smart if you can repeat back to me exactly what I said to you. And I had a real problem with that as well. So I had very strong authoritarian figures both in school and at home, which served as wonderful examples of how not to be. And an awful lot of kids, I think, we're born slaves to reason. And it's really reason that's beaten out of us through a process of trying to please our teachers. I think we have two fundamental drives in our life. We want to be loved, and we want to please people, and we know how to think, we know how to reason, and these are often quite at odds, because we're asked to believe certain things, believe certain things are correct. That we have to wear our hair a certain length and dress a certain way, and if you want to be loved, you want to be accepted by your peers, you want to be accepted by your family. And there's a tension there, and sometimes we're pleasing our parents, sometimes we're pleasing our peers, but we're often just conforming to some fashion, figuring out what the group wants from us, and then conforming to that because we want to be accepted and loved. There's this other fundamental drive inside of us where there's often tension between the two, and that is the ability to think, the ability to reason, the ability to come to conclusions as to what works and what doesn't, what's fair and what's not fair, what's right and what's wrong. And when fashion and the pursuit of love is in conflict with reason, too often fashion, the pursuit of love, wins. In my case, it didn't. I decided to go into the computer business in college. I started working part-time programming. I found that in a very short period of time I could make more money writing programs than a tenured professor at the University of Chicago was making. And I was a teenager, and I said, this is kind of cool. And it was also fun. It was like a big game. It was like working on puzzles. So I enjoyed it. It paid extremely well. I could work at home. I could work at my own hours. No one quite, and the computer, and I closely associated with computers because they were absolutely a slave to reason. They knew nothing about fashion. They were completely logical, and I enjoyed spending time with them. So I liked what I was doing. It was very profitable. It was very creative. It was in school, and they noticed when I was writing programs for school that I was getting done faster than everybody else. So they offered me a job. And I figured out very quickly that rather than being paid by the hour, I was much better off being paid by the program. So I figured that. So I was working for the university, and then I started doing consulting for local businesses, and that worked very well. Relational database technology was invented by a guy by the name of Ted Codd, Dr. Ted Codd at IBM. It's based on relational algebra and relational calculus. It is a very mathematically rigorous form of data management that we can mathematically prove to be functionally complete. And this work was done in the early 70s by an IBM fellow by the name of Dr. Ted Codd. He published his papers, and really based on those publications, Oracle decided to see if we couldn't beat, well, four guys, me and three other guys, see if we couldn't beat IBM to market with this technology based on the published IBM research papers. And in fact, we did. It is my job to go out in the marketplace and win. And we run ads that compare our products to the competitors' products. We don't lie about that. We just say we can do this, they can't. We name the competition. It's fact-based advertising, and we say very clearly that that we're faster, and these tests prove it. We're more reliable, and these tests prove it. We're more economical, and so we'll name a competitor. That's considered. That's not terribly, even though the facts are true, it's considered a little bit rude by some people. This is America. People can change jobs, and they'll go, and people like to work with other intelligent and interesting people. They like to do interesting things, Oracle. We have fantastic salary scales. I think we're the highest paying company in Silicon Valley. We have wonderful benefits, all of these things. But again, don't mistake any of that for altruism. That is in our interest to retain our employees. Their job, my job, is to build better products in the competition, sell those products in the marketplace, and eventually supplant Microsoft and move from being number 2 to number 1. That is our reason for being. Suddenly we'd hit a wall. We would reach $1 billion in revenue, and we were having serious management problems all over the place. And the people who were running the company, the $1 billion company, were the same people that had run the company when we were a $50 million company, 1/20th the size. And I had an incredible sense of loyalty to those people who'd worked with me to build Oracle. And it was a very painful realization in 1990 that I was going to have to change the management team, that the company had outgrown the management, that people who are good at running a $50 million company are not necessarily, those aren't the same skills. They're just different. Not one is better or worse. They're just entirely different skill set in running a $50 million company than a $1 billion company. And both skill sets are rare and precious. But we needed a different group of managers, and virtually the entire management team had to be replaced. And that means I had to ask people who I'd worked with for a decade to leave. I had to fire people. And that was the most difficult thing I had to do in business, asking a bunch of people to leave Oracle. Think things out for yourself. Come to your own judgments. Don't simply conform to conventional ways of thinking, conventional ways of dressing, conventional ways of acting. That a lot of things are based on fashion. Even morality at times is based on fashion. It was once slavery was once not considered not to be immoral. People are shocked that the ancient Greeks had slaves, that we had slavery in this country as recently as 130, 140 years ago. So there are moral factors. You have to really go back to first principles and think things out for yourself, whether they're scientific principles or moral principles or business ideas or product ideas. You have to think things out for yourself. The opportunity in this country is astounding. Everyone who works hard and maybe a little cleverly has the opportunity to make almost anything possible. And that's the American dream, that anything here is possible. We are not held back. That immigrants come here and in a single generation do extraordinary things. That this country is not perfect, but compared with every other country in the world, it's absolutely fabulous. And there's unlimited opportunity. it requires hard work. It requires a little bit of luck. But still, in America, anything is possible.